Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to the biology lesson. And today I'm happy to be with senior 2 class. And we're going to be having a lesson 1, which is concerning about joints and movement. Lesson 1, types of joints. So students, let's start our lesson of joints and movement. Everybody has joint, everybody move. How do we move? All right, we're going to talk about types of joints. So the lesson has almost 3 learning objectives. After this lesson, every student should be able to differentiate between a hinge joint and a ball and socket joint. And also another objective, you should be able to outline the functions of bones. I'm talking about the functions of bones. I will talk about ligaments, tendons, cartilages, nerves, and even synovial fluid in the joint. And even you'll be able to analyze the structure of movable and immovable joints. So welcome to the lesson. And I think before I start my lesson, I would like to tell you to pick a pen and a notebook. We start our lesson. Welcome to the lesson, students. So, dear student, I think that in senior 1, you studied about the skeleton. We say the skeleton is responsible for, the skeleton is responsible for movement, locomotion and movement. You also mentioned about the skeleton is responsible for protecting the internal delicate organs of our body. All right? So you try to mention the parts of the skeleton. I think you still remember, and its function, the function of the skeleton. So now we're going to talk about a joint. What is a joint? This is the time to think about what is a joint. If someone asks you, what is a joint? You are in senior 2. So a joint is a point where a bone meets another bone, or bones. A point where a bone meets another bone, or bones, that one is referred to as a joint. You have very many joints where a bone meets another bone. Except for the pelvic and even skull bones, and even sternum. All right? The joints allow movement and even provide what you call mechanical support. You remember I talked about the skeleton provides about movement and even is able to give support, protect the delicate internal organs of the body. So the joints also are responsible for movement and also providing the mechanical support. On that one, we have muscles that pulls bones to make joints to move. There are some of the muscles. You remember the skeleton is also attachment of muscles. Therefore, without joints, movement will not be possible at all. A person cannot move when you don't have joints. Most joints only allow slight movement, where other joints, they allow movement of at all. Some, they normally allow movement, slight movement. Others, they normally allow all movement. So a simple understanding joints are very important as far as movement and locomotion is concerned. So let's talk about joints. They develop between 2 adjacent bones. When there are 2 adjacent bones, that's where a joint can develop. However, movement is important in determining the type of joint that develops in that way. So you can be, if some of the joints can allow all movement and other can just not allow all movement, that one you have to develop what you call types of joints. Determining the type of joint that develops, some of the joints they restrict movement. Even in a free movable joint can transform to immovable joint. Let's have these 3 parts that are found in the bone. We have the bone, we have a cartilage, and a ligament. Let's see their functions. What is a bone? Sometimes we talk about a hard, tough connective tissue. It is a hard and tough connective tissue composed of mineral salts such as calcium and even phosphates. Take an example, if you remember properly, which part of the body contains more calcium and phosphate. Take an example, teeth. Teeth are the hard and tough connective tissue and is made up of more mineral salts such as calcium and phosphates. Also, the bone is made up of calcium and phosphate. And it is abundant, it is more abundant, it is more common in all animal skeleton. So all animal skeleton are made up of calcium and even phosphate. That makes it be hard. We talk about the cartilage. This is a skeletal connective tissue which is softer than the bone. The cartilage is softer than the bone. I mentioned which part of the body that has cartilages. We have the ear. It is made up of cartilages, not bones, because they are very softer than the bones. We also talk about it supports the trachea. The trachea is also made up of the cartilages. The nose, the esophagus, the pinna of the ear, all these are made up of the cartilages. And I mentioned cartilages, they are responsible for giving support. These parts, the trachea is supported by these cartilages. The ear, the pinna ear, have a shape of funnel-shaped structure because there's presence of cartilages which gives them support. Let's talk about the ligament. This is a fibrous tissue, not a connective tissue. We said the bone is containing of tough connective tissue. I talked about cartilages made up of skeletal connective tissue. Then the ligament is made up of fibrous tissue, which joins one bone to another. What joins a bone to another is what we call ligament. These ligaments, they are irresponsible to join a bone to another. So they are elastic to allow movement at joint. So these ligaments are able to be elastic and able to allow joints to move. We have a tendon. What is a tendon, student? Some will talk about tendon supporting tissues. These are tough connective tissues which attaches a muscle to bone, not a bone to bone. A bone to bone, we talked about a ligament. But what attaches a bone to muscle is referred to as a tendon. And they are inelastic. They are inelastic. They are not like ligaments. Let's have the muscles. This is a contractile tissues specialized for contraction and even relaxation. Muscles are able to contract and even to relax. When a person is moving, these muscles are able to contract and even relax. Let's have an example of the muscles. We have triceps muscles and biceps muscles. When this one contracts, this one relaxes. So they are antagonistic. Once contracts, another one relaxes. So they cover the skeleton. Most of the muscles, they do covering the skeleton. Not only covering the skeleton, they are also responsible for locomotion. And other types of movement in animals are also helped by the muscles. We also move because we have muscles. Because they are attached on the skeleton, which aids us to move or to do what you call locomotion. I know some of you don't differentiate between movement and locomotion. When I talk about movement, that is changing the position of something. That is movement. I'm moving my hand, but I'm not locomoting my hand. So locomotion meaning able to move from one place to another place. So muscles, they aid in terms of locomotion. Muscles, they aid in terms of movement of some parts of our body. So joints are classified structurally depending on how the bones are articulated or how function, depending on the degree of movement between the articulated bones. That's how we normally classify these bones. They are classified according to their structure, depending on how the bones are articulated, or functional depending on the degree of movement between the articulated bones. Structure and classification. We have cartilaginous joints, the bones that are connected by the cartilages. We have fibrous joints. the bones that are connected by dense fibrous tissues rich in collagen. We have synovial joint. There is a space between a bone, which is called a synovial cavity, that is filled with synovial fluid, known as synovial fluid. And we are going to talk about their functions because they are responsible for preventing what you call movement. Function and classification. We have two types of joints. We have movable joints and immovable joints. How is movable joints differ from immovable joints? Sorry. Movable joints allow some degree of movement. They don't allow all movement. Let me give an example. I can move my hand, but I cannot turn it in any way the way I want. Okay? But there are some of the joints that can allow all movement. And so they allow some degree of movement. I can move it from here, but I can't turn my hand in that way. So they allow some degree of movement. There are two categories. Those which allow straight mobility and those which are free movable. We have immovable joints, permanently very little or no mobility. They can't allow any movement. They are immovable. But these one movable, they can allow some movement, but not totally in that way. They can allow maybe straight mobility or free movement. That is movable joints. We have fixed or immovable joints. These are joints that do not allow any movement. Fixed, as the word implies, fixed or immovable joints. These are joints that do not allow any movement. For example, joints in cranium, commonly known as what you call sternus. They are normally, these are the bones that are found in the skull. These status, they are not responsible for able to move. These joints have simmer between the bones of the skull. They are not smooth, but rather they have interlocking finger-like processes that increase stability between the bones and the dense fibrous tissues. These are the bones I talked about, fixed. Sutures. You see, they cannot move, they are fixed. These are the bones of the skull. They are immovable, they are fixed. We talk about movable joints. These are joints that allows movement of parts of movement of the body, parts to take place. Parts of the body that are able to move. Some movable joints allow only a smaller degree of movement, as I mentioned it earlier, while others, they can allow a wide range of movement. Some, they can allow a certain degree of movement, but others, they can allow a very range of movement So let's talk about, there are several movable joints, which includes the griding joints. The griding joints, what are these griding joints are found? These are joints consist of two opposite flat surfaces that allow slight amount of griding motion. They occur between the vertebrae. They have no fluid between them, but instead they have a larger cartilages between them. We have what we call vertebral discs, which reduces friction during movement. They are also found in wrists and even anchor. When we talk about wrists and anchor, take an example, we have this diagram. That's a grinding. This is tibia, we have tibia, we have fibia, we have tarsals. These are the bone that is able to do what? To move, to make some slight movement. We have synovial joints. Let's have this one. These are joints that are classified depending on the shape of adjoining articular surface. They include Sada joints, which is comprised of the Sada shapes and even articulated surfaces that are oriented at right angle to each other. See, this is the diagram of Sardus joints. On the finger, these joints that are found here, these are called Sardus joints. Hinge joints allow movement in one plane. The joints in elbow, in the neck, finger joints show this back and force movement. As I'm trying to show you, this is the diagram that shows these joints. So let's have that diagram. A hinge joint of the knee jerking. We have this joint, we have this bone, which is called a femur. We have this, which is called tibia. So we have, between them, we have what you call synovial fluid. And also have what you call synovial capsules. We have patella and patella. See, these are the part that makes up the hinge joint. We talk about the pivot joints. It consists of cylindrical-like bone processes of one bone that rotates within a ring. Particularly, I'm talking about partially composed of bones and even cartilages. Examples including articulations of the axis within the atlas and even articulation between the head and radius and even proximal of the ulna. So these are the things I'm talking about. Let's talk about ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint. These are types of joints that allow a greatest flexibility of movement of all joints. Ball and socket joint. It consists of the ball-shaped head of one bone that is fixed into the cavity or into the socket, as I'm mentioning it, into the socket of the adjacent bone. This type of joint allows a wide range of movement in almost any direction. Okay? They're able to move in all directions. Take an example in the shoulder. See, this one can allow in any direction. Okay? The shoulder joint is an example of ball and socket joint. Bones at the hinge joint and the ball and socket joint are held in place by a ligament, which holds them together. So you remember I talked about what is a ligament. Let's have that diagram. This is a ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint, we have ligament which joins a bone to muscle. We have synovial membrane, head of femur, we have synovial capsule, and synovial fluid. So you try to see the diagram and you see how the ball and socket joint is formed. Ball and socket is like a ball, socket joint. So let's have the structure of the synovial fluid, the structure of the synovial joint. Synovial joint. This is the articulation surface of the bones at synovial joint are covered with articulated cartilages. When you go back to the diagrams, we have cartilages that are found here. Try to observe properly, and you are able to tell me what happens. These are membranes. We have a head of the femur, a ligament, synovial capsules. All right, these are some of the ligaments. We also have some more ligaments that are found here, which joins a bone to a muscle. So, as I mentioned it, joints are covered with articulated cartilages that provides a smooth surface where bones meet. Where two bones meet, what happens? They must be articulated cartilages. Where I said cartilages, they are softer than bones. Let's talk about synovial membrane. Synovial membrane lines the synovial cavity. The membrane produces synovial fluid. This synovial fluid is very important because it acts as a lubricant. It lubricates the bones because the bones will not have what you call friction. When a person is moving, friction will not take place. All right? Friction cannot take place because of synovial fluid. So that is a complex mixture of cells and even nutrients. So these nutrients, what are these nutrients that contained in the synovial fluid? such as proteins. Can talk about proteins. Can talk about polysaccharides, and even fats. So these are the things that you have to go through about this diagram. I'm emphasizing on that diagram. Here is the diagram. Inside the diagrams, we have what you call synovial fluid, which is located here, which is found around like this membrane, all right? So this synovial fluid is very important in terms of lubrication. And I said synovial fluid is also contains a complex mixture of cells and even nutrients such as proteins, polysaccharides, and even fats. The question will be, I'll be asking you, what kind of food or diet can you eat to get more synovial fluid? You eat food that contains more bone marrows, all right? Bones, they are the one that provides synovial fluid. You have ever seen some people, because of aging, the synovial fluid decreases, and eventually the person starts having some kind of paralyzation. Let's have the synovial fluid diagram. Synovial fluid covers the surfaces of the joints and provides a lubrication film. Lubrication film is normally done by synovial fluid. So synovial fluid prevents the bones from friction. Examples include the hinge joint, the shoulder, because these shoulders contains what you call synovial fluid, and even the knee joint. These knee joints here between the ball and socket joint. There's what you call synovial fluid. Let's have the diagram. The diagram tries to show you a synovial joint. We have compact bones, we have articulated cartilage, we have joint cavity with synovial fluid. So we are coming to the end of the lesson, but before I come to the end of the lesson, I would like to go back through and we remind ourselves what we've been talking about. So let's go back and try to remind ourselves about what we've been talking about. We started with movable joints and immovable joints. What are movable joints? Student, what are movable joints? I said the movable joints, they allow some degree of movement. A degree of movement, but not all movement. They are of two categories. There are those that arouse a straight mobility, and there are those which don't allow any mobility. There are those that arouse a straight mobility, but there are those which arouse a free movable. You are able to move. Number two, I talked about immovable joints, which permits a very little or no mobility, where I talked about the joints of the skull. We tried to classify under these movable, we talked about cartilaginous joints, fibrous joints, and synovial joints. So the bones that are connected by cartilages are called fibrous. The bones are connected by a dense fibrous tissue rich in called collagen. We have synovial. These are spaces between bones, and are called synovial cavity that fills with a fluid which is called synovial fluid. So those are what we discussed, and we talked about fixed or movable joints. We talked about these joints that are found in the skull, and we talked about the movable one. We talked about under movable one. We talked about the grinder joints, and also we talked about the ball and socket joints. So these are what you call movable joints. They are ball and socket joint, and even the grinding joints. So let's have the lesson assessment, and I hope everybody is able to go through that lesson assessment, and I assure you the assessment is very simple. Anybody can try it and see what happens, what is the right answer of this, because it is a multiple choice questions. Number one, assume that a sharp object penetrated a synovial joint. From a list of the structures, rate the order in which they would mostly likely to be penetrated. 1, muscle or tendon. 2, ligament. 3, articulated cartilage. 4, fibrous capsule. 5, skin. 6, synovial membrane. So you're going to choose A is 5, 1, 2, 4, 3, and 6. B, 5, 1, 2, 4, 6, and 3. C, 5, 1, 2, 3, 2, 6, 4, and 3. We have then D, 5, 2, 1, 4, 3, 6. You try to assure me how as an object, a sharp object will penetrate to the extent of reaching to the, will be able to penetrate and reach to the synovial joints. Number 3, which 2 joints move in the same way? Knee joint, shoulder joint. B, knee joint, elbow joint. C, neck joint, knee joint. D, knee joint, ankle joint. So you choose among of these joints that will move in the same direction. Number 3, which of the following is used to classify joints in the body? The number of bones that are articulated. B, the embryonic tissues formed at the joint. C, the connective tissue that binds the bones together. D, the degree of movement at the joint. E, both C and D are correct. So students, you have to go through that home assignment. It is very easy. You try it as you are still in holidays and because of COVID. So I think you are going to get the correct answers. So students, thank you very much for your active participation and listening and being with me in the biology lesson of Senior 2. I wish you to enjoy the rest of the day and stay safe. See you next time.